calling Columbia County Planning Commission meeting to order. Gentlemen, if I could ask you to please remove your covers while the meeting's in session. Thank you. And if I could remind you to please turn your cell phones off. If you'd stand with us, Commissioner Futch will lead us in our invocation, and Commissioner Henderson will lead us in the pledge.
Bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for letting us gather. Every place to live.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. We do have 4 or 5 commissioners tonight, so we have an 80% quorum. Gentlemen, you've had a chance to review the minutes from the November 21st meeting. If you have no amendments or changes that you'd like to propose, I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve the minutes passes 4-0. We've also had a chance to review the agenda. If there are no additions to the agenda as it's been presented to you, I need a motion for approval.
So move.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve the agenda passes 4-0. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to clarify that the Planning Commission is a recommending body to the Columbia County Board of Commissioners. The decisions made on rezoning and variance requests tonight will be forwarded to the Commissioners for final action on December 17th, 2019 in these chambers at 6 p.m. If you wish to address the Board of Commissioners at their meeting, please see Ms. Liz Metzger, and she'll give you a request to speak form. We're a little less formal in these chambers. I know that a number of you are probably here for the River Island issue on the agenda. If you have a person that is going to speak for the development, I'd like for that person to come up first. I understand there is a presentation on that, and if you'd like to speak, you can raise your hand on any of the issues tonight, and we'll give you 3 to 5 minutes. I would ask that you not be repetitive. If we've heard an issue, one of the favorite things that people like to talk about is traffic, and we'll have 10 people come up, and everybody will talk about traffic. We get it. We don't have to hear it time and time and time again. I will ask that you treat each other with respect, because we're probably going to have people with differing viewpoints. If you happen to get out of order, I will ask you to leave the meeting. We all live here, we have opinions, we can state them, but we can be adults about it. I'm going to ask you to please adhere to a certain amount of decorum. But our function here is to be a shock absorber for the commissioners. So we have more time to let people speak and to get what their opinions are on the record. So if you have an issue that you'd like to speak on, raise your hand, we'll call you up. If you have something you'd like to comment on that's off the agenda, that you'd like to put on the record in public comments, again, we can call you and ask you to come up. With that being said, let's move forward to our first item on the agenda, conceptual plan for Cemetery Road. Ms. Bolte.
Yes, sir. This item has been tabled twice, waiting on the Health Department to review the soil survey. That review is complete at this time. The revised concept plan has 38 lots on it, located off Cemetery Road. This is on the south side of Grovetown off of Newmantown Road. It's all RA residential agriculture zoning with a 2.5 acre minimum lot size. This is the results of the soil survey and the revised concept plan. And we were talking earlier about lots 2 and 3. It does look like they did make some revisions to that, so it looks like those lots will meet minimum lot size requirements. That will all be checked at preliminary plat as well. They'll have to provide a more detailed level 3 soil survey with the preliminary plat, as well as all the lots will have to meet the RA requirements. With the Health Department's approval, staff is now recommending approval of the concept plan.
Okay, this is not a public hearing, but gentlemen, do you have any questions for staff? So we're confident that all the lots are going to meet the 2.5 acre requirement?
Yes, sir. It looks
With that
like
one line being moved?
it is a little bit of a funny lot line, but that is to accommodate the soils and to meet the lot size requirements.
Okay, but y'all will take care of that on final review?
Yes, sir. So at the preliminary plat, we'll verify the lot size and frontage.
Questions? Okay, I'll need a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve the conceptual plan for the Cemetery Road subdivision.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve carries 4-0. Ms. Hall?
Evening. We have 2 massage operator licenses for you tonight. The first is for Alicia Scott Bryden, doing the business as Therapeutic Massage Solutions. She is actually currently licensed at 7013 Evanstown Center Boulevard and is transferring her license to 620 Ponder Place Drive, Suite 1. She meets all the requirements, and I recommend approval.
Gentlemen, do you have any questions? We'll need a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve Alicia Scott Bryden.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Approve carries 4-0. Ms. Hall?
And our second is for Rising Phoenix Massage LLC. Their massage therapist Alicia Pryor meets all requirements. Oh, and it is at 101 Maple Drive. Recommend approval.
Questions? Approve, deny, or to table.
Chairman, I make a motion to approve H2A2.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve carries 4-0. Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Bolte, we've got a preliminary plat for John's Landing.
Yes, sir. This is a preliminary plat for John's Landing, which is an R3 single-family residential subdivision located on Linwood Drive. Located at the end of the existing Linwood Drive. They've combined several parcels for this development. They are proposing a total of 22 lots that all meet the requirements for the R3 zoning district. We do have minor waiver requests in the office for the first 5 lots to reduce the front setback by the 10%. Those will be processed once the final plat is approved. With the exception of those lots, the front setbacks are 50 feet from the center line of the road, and side and rear setbacks are 10 feet. They are proposing sidewalks in this development, and staff is recommending approval.
Under 10%, you can approve that administratively?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. This is not a public hearing. Gentlemen, do you have any questions? If not, we'll need a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for John's Landing.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve carries 4-0. Okay, we'll enter into our public hearing portion of the evening. Ms. Bolte, file RZ 191201.
Yes, sir. This is a request for a change of conditions for Willow Oak Village, which is located off Hamilton Road. The parcel that's primarily involved with this request is located off Raleigh Drive and Fordham Road, kind of on the northern end of Willow Oak Village, this being the remainder of the development. The property is currently zoned R2 RCO, single-family residential with our residential cluster overlay. That zoning was approved back in 2006 with several conditions. At that time, one of them limited the minimum lot size to 10,000 square feet. With the RCO, they would ordinarily have been allowed a smaller lot size, with the exception of that condition. In 2013, there was a county-initiated change of conditions that removed the lot size requirement in favor of implementing a maximum number of lots. So they were limited to 413 lots in the overall development due to concerns with sewer capacity in the area. It's that condition that they're asking for a change of at this point in order to develop this last piece of the property. As you can see on the aerial, it is currently an undeveloped site. Phase 6 below it that has been built out. The development of this property does not reduce the required open space in the development. They were required with zoning conditions to have at least 20 acres, and they will maintain that. Some photos of the existing development and the undeveloped site. This property is in the neighborhood's character area on the future land use map. It is already zoned for residential use, which is appropriate in this area, and at the desired density that target 1 to 4 units per acre. So removing the condition simply allows them to develop it as it's currently zoned. Water utility has indicated that sewer capacity is no longer a concern here, and they're comfortable having that condition lifted. Staff is recommending approval with a condition regarding a stub out to the north that I'll discuss a little bit more with the concept plan, why it's being directed specifically to the tax map and parcel there.
Okay. Gentlemen, any questions?
So you're saying now there's enough water and sewer to support the project,
Yes, sir.
where there wasn't in the past?
Yes, sir.
Stub out to address any future traffic or development?
Right, so the stub out would be roughly in that location. It would eventually, through these two parcels, allow for a connection out to Wrightsboro Road for an additional entrance.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Is the applicant here this evening? Yes, sir. Would you like to come forward and give us any additional information? Glad to see you're off your crutches.
Starts in January. I want to thank you all for hearing this today. I'm Joe
Please.
Galino. I'm
There you
Vice
go.
President of Development for Beasley Builders. You want my address? It's 7009 Evanstown Center Boulevard. Before I talk, I want to welcome Scott, one of the few planning directors I haven't argued with yet. But I think he's going to be a good addition and an asset to the county. It's a good move. Anyway, just to elaborate a little bit on what Danielle had mentioned with the original zoning, and Danielle's been very instrumental in helping us with that. The 413 was part of the sewer capacity. When we were limited to the 10,000, when we were required 10,000 square feet lot, when we did the master plan, the 413 is all we could get based on the 10,000 square foot because of the sewer capacity. Once the sewer capacity was lifted, then that allowed us to lift also the smaller, the 10,000 square foot requirement. This parcel was still part of the original master plan based on the 10,000 square feet. So that's one of the reasons we want to get it developed and homes in there. I'll answer any questions if the Planning Commission has any.
Gentlemen, any questions?
Formulating questions, but
Take your time.
I mean,
Okay. Mr. Galena, we may call you back up. If
Not a
you-
problem.
we'll-
I'll
we'll-
answer
We'll
anybody's
open up the
question.
floor.
Yeah, phone
Okay,
numbers.
great.
No problem.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward. Give us your name and home address.
Name is Kimberly Gregg, 453 Drive, Grove, California. I live in Willow Oak. We've been fighting these homes since 2016. Initially, we were told there wasn't that many homes in the village. It was supposed to be 250. Then it went to 413. Now it's another 45. Traffic, the road conditions, our yards that are flooding, it is a concern. It's a rural area back off of Hamilton. I don't know if you've ever been back there.
we have,
Yeah, it's very, very rural. And to stub it out, they're showing that they're gonna stub it out into property that's private. It's a private dirt road back there. They don't own the property. I haven't seen the property up
Honestly,
for sale.
that's, we try to plan ahead for development.
Okay.
And stub outs are something that we try to include. So if somebody does happen to develop that in the future, we can tie together to try to mitigate some of the traffic problems.
Okay, that's, a concern is the traffic, the infrastructure, cars that are gonna be tearing up our road. It's like a roller coaster. You go in, there's some sinkholes, there's some cave-ins in yards. That's one of the biggest concerns. The creek that was along the backside of Sebastian is now dried up. I do know the EPA did put a stop work order on the building years ago. I do not know what came of it, why they put a stop work order. I know it was around the creek and for the creek, but I don't know what came of it.
Mr. Galino, do you have, would that be something to do with a sediment fence or anything like that? Okay. Right. Okay, thank you, sir.
And my last thing is the original plans that was submitted for the county. There were supposed to be hiking trails, walking trails on the backside of the neighborhood. They were never completed along with phase 4. So in the conceptual plans that were here and approved back since 2009, they have never been fulfilled for our neighborhood. The open areas, we have one next to the pool. We have a couple little ones. Most of them are deep hills, not really an area where children can play. So my concern would be that.
Mr. Galino, would you like to address that for us about the amenities that haven't been developed?
Problem with
I would suggest that you get your homeowners association together and meet with Mr. Galino and Mr.
Okay.
Beasley.
Yes, I do have the emails from him about
Okay.
it, and also for the pathway that connects, why Mr. Giuliano brought it up, it is not handicap accessible.
Okay.
We do have,
That has nothing to do with our
Nothing to do.
department here.
okay,
Could I say one thing, please? Ma'am, this property they're talking about developing was a part of the original plan,
okay,
and it couldn't be done because water and sewer wasn't there. Now the water and sewer is available, so it's not that we're voting tonight on changing zoning. This is a part of the master plan.
okay. So may I ask that the buffer, so if it's in the master plan, the original plan, in the paperwork that was submitted, it was a 25-foot buffer. Is it supposed to be a 50-foot buffer with Columbia County since the areas around it is zoned residential agriculture?
So with the different residential zoning classifications, it does only have to be a 25-foot buffer between zonings. Ordinarily, with the mass grade, so if they go in and clear everything, that would be a 50-foot buffer with the new codes. This one's in a little bit of a special circumstance in that it was previously approved before we had those requirements in place. So this one will just have the 25-foot buffer.
Okay, so it was previously approved to be built on, but it wasn't built on at the time when the buffer was in place.
It's not uncommon for the process to take enough time that ordinances may change in the course of that time. So something may be approved under one ordinance, time may pass, some things may be updated. So I think that's what you're referring to. Is that right, Danielle?
Right, so our buffer codes have changed since this property was approved. So you're correct that new projects, when they're mass grading, require 50-foot buffers. This project was approved prior to that requirement being in place, so they won't be held to that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you coming out. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning? Yes, sir. Please come forward. Give us your name and home address.
Donald Gilman, 3264 Alexandria Drive,
Okay, would you spell your last name for us?
Gilman.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd like to speak against it on the reason I got a neighbor who puts these houses so close together. When it rains hard, my neighbor's got a flooding problem. They didn't, the builder has not properly installed the drainage off the house, and his carpet's getting wet when he's flooding. I had a 30-day list from the builder to have completed. I've been there 11 months now, and the 30-day list is not done. Either my 12-month, my 1 year is not gonna be done. The builder talks about he builds stuff, but he don't build the quality home, and he builds these homes so close together, and you're approving them so close together, it's actually gonna cost us to get in a flood zone later down the road. This retaining pond probably is not big enough to hold all these parcels that he wants to put into the subdivision. And he talked about the HOA. The HOA can't do really, they, like the mailbox things. The HOA bought some solar lights to put up on the mailboxes. They haven't been installed because Beasley has control of our HOA and these things not being installed. This things that was should be done, it's not done. So people have to walk up down the sidewalks to a dark area, mailbox area. And it's just the building, they want to push out and build so much, but they won't take care of what they said they originally done. Just like that lady spoken back. When I bought my house there 11 months ago, I was told about the walking trails. The walking trails are gonna hit you into Uchi Creek Trail. It's not been done. They're doing stuff, they're asking you for building more and more, but they're not
Is the Uchi
coming up
Creek
with the existing
complete?
things that they promised us.
Is the Uchi Creek Trail complete near this development? Still under construction?
I believe so. Also, I can't remember.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Mr. Galino, you raised your hand.
Question I have is the road that will go into the other parcel. I want to be able to have some flexibility on where it goes based on grading. I
Sure.
definitely don't want to say, well, it's got to go here and my lot here and they're down here. That won't work. So
I mean, the condition is just to connect to that parcel.
and you don't think Steve will give us any problems because the roads are going to be kind of skewed.
No.
Traffic.
I
Okay,
mean,
that's all I
think
was
you'll have to
after.
meet some kind of distance. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure that can't be,
You know, sometimes
an
you
offset,
You
but
pick a spot, so I wouldn't have to come back through concept plan if I move it.
no.
Okay, that's all I had for you, Danielle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, sir. Is there anyone else? No, sir. We've already been once. Yes, sir. We'll take you. And once you're finished, we'll close the public hearing. Please give us your name and home address.
My name is Paul McCrary. Address is 746 Hamilton Road. I don't live in Willow Oaks, but what these fine folks have failed to take consideration is the community. The traffic was already mentioned, but what they haven't talked about is the overcrowding schools down in Harlem. These additional houses are gonna bring additional students to already schools that have metal buildings sitting outside.
Okay, sir, I want to let you know that whenever we have something that comes up for a public hearing, that we send out requests for information to all the department heads, including the Board of Education. And they have not said that this will affect the schools one bit.
So
And
metal
we have
building-
to, and we have to trust their opinion,
I wanna understand one thing from you.
okay?
Metal buildings sitting on a school being used by students is perfectly fine with me.
From
That's
what I
not for us to
understand,
decide.
the-
That's the school board.
from what I understand, the funding formula for schools in Georgia is we have to be in portables for 5 years before they will look at giving the local boards funding for additional schools.
So when we redraw school lines again because of things like this.
And that's Board of Education you're gonna have to talk to, that's not us.
Shouldn't you be working hand in hand with them to control the population?
If you could get them to return my phone call, I'd appreciate it.
Well, let's work on
I've
it.
been on this board for 12 years. And do you know how many phone calls I've received in return to my many phone calls? That many.
Who are you trying to contact so I can contact them?
You can start at the top,
Well, who would that be?
Sandra Caraway.
Okay, and who else? have
I've
you
mentioned this before, and all that happened to me was she called and was upset that I had mentioned this. We have tried time and time and time again, from the Board of Commissioners to the Planning Commission, to work hand in hand. They want to work independently because they feel like if we work together, there could be a conflict of interest. I understand that viewpoint. I don't particularly agree with that viewpoint. I've got kids in school here, so I understand what you're saying. We could probably work together. We've tried to get our traffic people together with them, and I won't bore you with those details. I set up a lunch so that folks from both sides would meet because they wouldn't talk together. So I surprised them and invited them both to lunch and didn't tell them the other was gonna come. They agreed they were
Chairman,
gonna work together, and they don't.
I'll take it one step further. Would the representative from the Columbia County Schools please raise your hand?
They
I've
say
talked to Sandra Caraway also, and she mentioned that there is always a representative from the school board in our meetings. As you can see, there's not. So it's not been a good relationship. But you mentioned, you made a comment about controlling the population. And I tell you what, I've lived in many places. I've lived here 12 years. I'd rather live in a community that's growing and thriving than one that's dying. And so growth is something that fact of life in our community, but it's a good fact of life.
It is when infrastructure.
And we're gonna continue to have to plan, and I think our planning body does a good job of helping with that process. It's not a perfect process. We're citizens just like you are.
Exactly.
But I think it's a good process. Being a part of it for 5 years, I think seeing it work has helped me be a better citizen in this community. So I appreciate you coming up and saying.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Yes, sir. Does this have to do with this or something else?
I'd like to respond.
I tell you what, could we do that? If it's not germane to this particular rezoning, can we do it in, it is, okay. Give us your name and home address.
My name's Claude Pinner. Last name is spelled Pinner. I live at 820 Fenwick Court in Willow Oak. And the comment that you had made, growth is good. Growth is, especially for homeowners, because we expect the properties around us to build in value, especially with the growth coming from Fort Gordon, with everything coming in. And I believe one of the things that we as homeowners in that subdivision worry about is sale value for our homes. And you had mentioned prior that a condition had been lifted that they were originally supposed to be 10,000 minimum lots. That condition was lifted.
Correct.
So now they're smaller lots.
But that's because sewer's available.
Correct. Sewer's available, but these are gonna be smaller lots. Smaller lots is smaller prices. Smaller prices takes down the median home value.
To clarify, that condition was lifted in 2013 because there were already lots below that. So that was to bring the entire neighborhood into zoning compliance,
they had
so that the
already-
existing lots are not 10,000 square feet.
They had already violated the condition, lifted the condition, so they could continue.
In a way, yeah. Now, to be fair, the county, whoever was reviewing the plans at that time, also approved the plans with those lot sizes. They were building to their approved plans.
And that's all I wanted to say, was just worry about a resale, because nobody's gonna live in the neighborhood. So we would like to make sure that we're back end, be able to sell and sell at a reasonable price. Start to overcrowd neighborhoods, tend to not be desirable.
Could I say something to you? This was approved way back. And everybody has a responsibility to check zoning in an area. Most people don't, but they have a responsibility to check what may or may not happen around where they live. Now, these lots were approved way before tonight. That's not what we're doing here tonight.
So the number of lots,
The number, and these lots were. They were waiting on water and sewer. Now the developer's got that, so he wants to develop it. But it was approved. We're not voting tonight to approve or disapprove. It's already been done, way back in what year?
The original zoning was in 2006.
So it's been zoned since then.
the area has been zoned.
The whole
The
issue.
amount of homes in there has changed over time.
With the sewer available, yes.
I think that's all that people are trying to get at. We just,
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yes, sir. And with you, we're going to close the public hearing, because we've got other issues we need to cover tonight. Please give us your name and home address.
Richard Vavra, V-A-V-R-A. Home address is 4507 Raleigh Drive. So I actually just moved here like 2 weeks ago, so I'm like super new to the neighborhood. We just bought our home, like closed on it last month. We live like right at that corner. Yeah, I'm not here to argue. It seems like your guys' mind's already made up, but I just go on record. I would like to say that, personally, my wife and I, we were not for it just because we came down here a few weekends looking at lots of different areas. We really liked the Willow Oak Village area. We liked the size of the property, the lots, the unique characteristics of the neighborhood. We kind of asked the builder for, what the various phases were. We actually kind of thought that the phase that they're building in now, which is our phase, was going to be the last phase. So it's really selfish reasons for me personally, right? I'm not I actually lived here back in 2001, and this place has like exploded since then. So super excited to see how awesome the whole area's been developed and stuff, and definitely all for that. So really, it's just I just wanted to go on record saying, yeah, we're against it just because we kind of definitely track in our responsibility, look at the zoning and everything, but kind of when we looked at the plans and everything, we really thought that was going to be the last phase, and we really liked the characteristics of the neighborhood, how it was small, more intimate. So that's really it. I don't really have any profound things with codes or anything. Don't really know a lot of that. Just my own personal selfish reasons. So.
Mr. Favor, today I requested the minutes, the complete minutes of the previous meetings, and when I said I was formulating additional questions, I was looking at those notes on my phone, and this is on those previous meetings notes.
Sounds good.
So if someone told you that it wasn't part of the plan, I think you have an issue with that person. But it definitely was part of the original plan that was filed, and wanted to make sure, as for my responsibility, that due diligence was done, and it was in fact on those previous.
All right.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank
your
you,
time.
sir. And with that, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve RZ 191201.
Do I hear a second?
Is there a condition? There was a condition.
With the attached
Yes, with
condition.
conditions, I'm sorry.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve carries 4-0. All right, do we, Ms. Bolte, do we have the conceptual plan for Willow Oak Village?
Yes, sir, we do. So with any proposed new subdivision, they do have to submit a conceptual plan. So in conjunction with the previous change of conditions request, they have submitted a concept plan for the last piece, section 7. It's on 12.9 acres, and is proposed 45 lots. This is the existing condition of the site, again, undeveloped wooded site, bounded by phase 6 to the south, and additional kind of undeveloped, largely undeveloped property to the north. Existing topography of the site. And the concept plan is pretty basic. It's a fairly narrow site, and does kind of limit their ability to do anything really creative with it. So it is just a extension of the road there to an additional cross street, 2 cul-de-sacs at the end. The lots all appear to meet the requirements of the RCO, the current zoning district. They do have a stub out shown here. We are proposing that to be relocated. If we look at kind of the overall view of this area, their current stub out location would basically eventually connect to Davis Powell Road, which is a small private kind of dirt road with some existing large lots on it. It's probably not likely that that particular area is going to develop in the short or medium term. These 2 parcels are under common ownership. They're larger tracts that are more likely to develop in that near to medium term. And would provide an additional connection point to Wrightsboro Road. So we are recommending that the stub out be to that parcel instead. And staff is recommending approval with that condition.
This is a public hearing. Is the applicant here? Yes, sir. Would you like to come up and add anything to that?
I think we covered everything with that. The only question I did have is, and I'll work with you, Danielle, once we get a preliminary layout and engineer it, find out exactly where that stub out road goes and see if that's acceptable. It may end up going closer to the cul-de-sac up that way. I'm not 100% sure. But until I really get into engineering, as long as I have that leeway, I'm good. Okay? Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak either for or against the conceptual plan? Yes, sir. Give us your name and home address.
I live at 3266 Alexandria Drive. With this stub out, are they going to build any more phases connecting on either side of that property, the road or anything?
That would depend on who bought the other property.
Okay. All I wanted to ask.
The Beasleys could buy it, or another builder could buy it and tie into that.
Okay.
So, all right. Anyone else like to speak either for or against the conceptual plan? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Mr. Chairman, I'll follow up with the motion for the conceptual plan for Willow Oak Village Phase 7 with conditions.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Approve the conceptual plan, passes 4-0. We do have an item that we have been asked to table until 12/19. However, since the item has been advertised, we do have to hold a public hearing. So at this point, Ms. Bolte, file RZ 191202.
Yes, sir. This is a request for a major revision to the existing planned unit development at 850 Ronald Reagan Drive and 732 North Bel Air Road. This is just down the street from us. See, we're actually right there. So just on the north side of Ronald Reagan, near its intersection with Bel Air Road. Currently, it is part of a planned unit development. This was zoned PUD in 2004 as part of Marshall Square, which included pretty much everything you see in that zoned PUD there. That's been broken up a little bit since then. That was a mixed-use PUD for retail, offices, hotel and convention space, and residential that had a defined density up to 34 units per acre under that PUD. That PUD's been revised several times. The two most relevant, there was a 2009 revision, revised some of the uses in the site plan, had some additional conditions applied to it that regarding the residential density and limiting that to 14 units per acre. That did lead to a lawsuit. Go particularly well. The settlement of that did kind of split this property up. So the southern piece of this PUD is now the Plaza PUD, which is under development with the Maybaum Building and the Performing Arts Center. As part of that, there were also covenants adopted on this property. It does actually prohibit residential development without approval from Marshall Square, who was the original owner, and from the county. In 2013, it was revised again for the senior living facility, and that was submitted with the approval to revise the covenants. It was built, and of course, unfortunately, suffered the fire in 2015 and was subsequently demolished. So currently, this is a vacant site or a scraped site. There was also a zoning condition with that use that if they wanted to use it for any other purpose, they had to rezone it. So that is why the applicants are here with this new request. Some photos of the existing site. Since the previous buildings have been demolished, it is essentially a vacant property. There's some remnant parking lots, retaining walls, things like that on it. The overall concept for the new PUD revision is still a mixed-use concept. The applicants are proposing between 10 and 50,000 square feet of commercial space, as well as up to 300 apartments and a possible hotel location. Buildings are generally going to be between 2 and 5 stories, with parking central to the site behind the buildings. 2 of the buildings, these 2, are proposed to be strictly residential. The other 3, well, back up a second. This one is defined as a mixed-use building, which means it would have commercial space on the ground floor and residential above it. The other 2 on Ronald Reagan Drive could also be mixed-use. That is where the range of the commercial square footage comes in. So on the low end of that, at the 10,000, it would just be that building. At the 50,000, it would be all 3. The buildings generally have small setbacks. They're right up on the road, which is what we do want to see with the development of kind of our downtown area. It reflects what's going on with the Plaza development as well. And the applicants have borrowed quite a few of their development standards from the Plaza PUD as well. The applicants have also submitted kind of more detailed examples of their streetscape and how the buildings would relate to that street area with the pedestrian zone, storefront, landscaping, street furniture, lighting, things like that, that would, again, try to mirror the plaza or at least work with it. They've also submitted photo examples of what that might look like when it was built out, as well as architectural examples for the buildings themselves. They've done some work regarding materials, regarding kind of some of the design features that they may include, color palette, signage, the window size and placement, how the building masses are broken up, They've given us some narrative information and also some pretty good architecture picture examples to explain kind of what they're looking at doing there. The site does also have a significant elevation change, so that is going to take some engineering design to work with the grade change. And they have submitted some pictures, like the top right one there, of working with that grade and how the buildings may be able to fit in with that. Some of the existing developments in the area, this is a higher density, slowly developing area, so we do have things like the tax slayer building that are taller, the plaza development underway, things like that. As far as future land use, this is in the Evanstown Center, a mixed-use activity center. This area is intended to be a higher density pedestrian-oriented type area with a mix of shops, restaurants, offices, and higher density residential uses, including apartments or condos, things like that. So the proposal is in keeping with the intent of that activity center. With the covenants I mentioned earlier that do need to be worked out and some refinement that's still needed with the narrative, staff is recommending tabling this application.
Thank you. Gentlemen, any questions, staff? Is the applicant here? Yes, sir. Would you like to come forward and give us any additional information? Okay, and you would like to table till the 19th? Okay, thank you. Normally, we would open the discussion up for public on a rezoning like this. However, since we're tabling, we're not sure if this is the final product that you're going to see. So rather than us weigh in and spend time talking about something that's a maybe, we'll wait until we have the final proposal, because there are some legal matters that have to be hashed out. So we're not sure if this is actually the final product. So with that being said, I'm going to close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve, deny, or to table. And, gentlemen?
Mr. Chair, I move to table file RZ 191202, major PUD revision to the December 19th, 2019 planning meeting.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion to table carries 4-0. All right, Mr. Butler, file RZ 191203.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request for a major PUD revision east of the intersection of River Island Parkway and Blackstone Camp Road on 25.42 and 32.49 acres. Does include a portion of one of those parcels. Currently, it's under construction. We'll see some photos of it here in a moment. This is a major revision to revise the site layout and uses. This is the location of the property, again, right across the street from River Island Parkway. The overall PUD was rezoned back in 2002. We'll see here in a moment. Does include, this is part of River Island. That's what the revision pertains to. In terms of surrounding zoning, you have River Island around it to the north, south, and west, and to the east, you do have the Carriage Hills development, which is zoned R2. Area of the site, it looks a little different than that right now. Site here, this is from Blackstone Camp Road, looking at the apartment side of it. This is I believe this is the townhouse section. South, this shows a plat of the property. The reason is a portion, the parcel that is 001 P is actually multiple parcels, over 180 acres. So again, we were having to kind of portion it out in regards to that. The plat of the property for the apartment parcel and the plat for the other one. So this was revised. So this parcel here, parcel 6, has always been zoned for apartments since 2002. In 2013, there were some revisions made where this parcel was changed to townhouse residential. And also this S1 daycare, which is a question for everyone that is out there with the current uses. So in terms of what's going on now, this is the current grading plan for the property. It has been graded. We saw the photo earlier before, showed lots of moving of dirt. It is currently, they're doing some work on the site to kind of take care of some erosion issues that have popped up. But currently, it is dormant, waiting on the site plan to be approved. Again, this is the other side of the grading plan on the north side of Blackstone Camp Road. The next slide here shows the current development plan that is in for review. This is not approved. I just want to make that very clear. We've gone through 2 review cycles on this. One of the reasons that we'll see here in a moment with what's being changed, these 2 portions here, they could actually, in our approximation of things, develop the parcel as is right now, and include this drive and all of that. However, they could not put any apartments or anything like that on this parcel. However, they have requested a PUD revision, revise this, which we'll see on the next slide. This is the revision. The green line here is the, I'm hoping you can all see, yeah, is the current parcel, the current apartment parcel here, and this is the townhouse parcel to the south. The revision is to include this kind of red or fuchsia colored new parcel, which is a little bit under 25 acres. And it does go down into what used to be the townhouse parcel, or what would be the townhouse parcel. So there is a reduction in the size of the apartment parcel. Overall, the size is about 3/4 of an acre is being moved around when all is said and done. Again, the revision does include the 50-foot buffer around the entire site. They are limiting themselves to the 274 apartment units, which has been a point of contention between staff and also the developer on how many they can actually have versus what other documents say. This kind of what has been somewhat agreed to with this. In terms of proposed new lot lines, you do have the new parcel you can see outlined in black. Then you do have, again, the remainder of the 0.75 would be put into the 001T or townhouse lot. In terms of the overall future land, actually the next one does show a concept elevation that they presented to us. They're still held to the current narrative for their architecture. They do have to meet those guidelines. This is what they've submitted so far. There's no requirement for them to submit anything to staff. They just have to follow their own narrative in this case. Again, Matt can probably go more in depth on it, but again, they do have a big house concept, so it looks like a large house instead of your normal apartment development. In terms of future land use, this is something that'll probably be brought up quite a bit. So future land use for this area is neighborhoods. That does not anticipate any townhouses or apartments. We actually had a rezoning a couple months ago that was in a similar area that had about 200 townhouses. That was turned down. Staff from the beginning said, we're not going to support these townhouses. The comp plan does not support townhouses or apartments for a new development. Stress that very clearly. New development cannot have this, in our opinion. An older development that was rezoned back in 2002 that has the ability, that had the, I don't want to use grandfathering, but that's kind of a way to look at it, has the ability to do this that's been given to it before. They can retain that. This is not a new development, in our opinion. So again, because of that, we feel it does meets the future land use because of that. If it was new, we would say no here. In staff's opinion as well, what we're doing is revising some property lines and also nailing down a number of apartments instead of hashing it out in other ways. So again, staff does recommend approval of conditions of the request. The first one here, apartment density is limited to 274 units. That is in the applicant's narrative. However, we do have a condition to be very clear. That's what we've all agreed to. Second condition is a 20-foot easement will be done to Columbia County for the purpose of constructing a sidewalk. One of the things here is that there is no sidewalk going to Stallings Island Middle School. This would provide the ability to do that fairly quickly. Again, it would go from the end of their parcel down to Stallings Island Middle. BOE would then hopefully pick up the remainder of that and have a sidewalk that goes into their school. We brought up before kind of the coordination issues between the school and the county. We're working to improve that. It's going to be a process. This is hopefully going to help with that. Again, if we can all work on a project together, it may help. But again, this is something that will be hopefully make that happen. Our last one there, actually the second to last one there, excess property from the property line adjustment for tax map 081 001D will be included in a separate parcel. It is green space and shall not be made a part of tax map 081 001T. So the townhouse parcel, it says it has a certain density, 8 units per acre, and it's tied to the actual acres of the parcel. So if you increase it by the 0.75, we're actually increasing the townhouse density. So the idea behind this is that we're going to keep it whole. It's going to stay the exact same as it is right now. And that extra 0.75 acres, give or take, that was interesting, will be off on its own, won't be included in anything. It doesn't exist for all practical purposes.
No townhomes will be built on
Nothing
the
will
extra
be built
space.
on that. Again, for all practical purposes, it doesn't exist. So the last one here, Site development for 081001D will follow standards in the adopted narrative for River Island with the exception of the density for the site. That includes staff recommendation.
So we're tied to 274 units, no more.
That
period.
is correct.
But the potential could be 305 with the acreage. And I know that's a moving number.
So sure, you can argue that. You can argue it can be 272.
And I know that involves an easement and all that
305.
kind of good stuff, but
Yeah.
technically, we could be
Technically.
talking about 305.
Sure.
And go to
Talk
court
about
and all that kind of good stuff to decide, okay. This was rezoned in 2002. So nobody in this department, nobody that's an elected official was involved in this decision. I think Frank Spears made the motion back in the day. And from what I'm told, they never thought this development would happen.
Well, nor can any of this that happened back then be changed.
Well, and I think that's a,
We
and
said that.
and this is kind of out of order. I know that we have had people come in and tell us that we just need to rezone something. I had Austin Rhodes call me one day and tell me, you just need to rezone, something so a project can't happen. And the problem with that is the county would be sued. We would lose because we can't come in and arbitrarily do something like that because that would involve a taking. That would be like me coming in and rezoning somebody's house and say, we're gonna put commercial there and we're gonna tear your house down. So we would lose, we would likely pay damages and they'd build anyway. So we're all having to deal with something here that none of us were involved with. It was made by another group and we're bound by the laws of the land. With that, Mr. Mills, I'm gonna ask you to come up. This is a public hearing and, give us the presentation, then we'll open the floor up because I know the homeowners do have a presentation that they'd like to make.
Certainly. Matt Mills, my address is 3009 Lake Forest Drive, Augusta, Georgia. I'll be real brief because I think it's pretty simple. I mean, it's a major PUD revision in name only in my mind, because really all we're doing is changing the shape. Actually, the parcel that we'll end up with is going to be smaller than the parcel that was zoned. We agree with all the staff's conditions that they'll put on it. We will reduce it to 274. We will provide the sidewalk county. And why are we here to begin with? We want it to be as nice of a development as it possibly can be. Look at the site plan. It's pretty clear. There's a big open space in there. That open space contains some pretty substantial trees. I wish we could have saved more, but in order to do a development of this size, we had to here and grade. Was not a flat site to begin with. It is a flat site now. And so we took the heart of the site because it was at the grade that balanced, kept the trees there. It happens there's a monster magnolia tree that's there. There's several pecan trees that are 18 inches in diameter, and there's several large sweet gums that are actually attractive. Somewhat of an anomaly. Everybody thought they were oak trees. They're sweet gums, but they're really good looking. So that being said, by passing this rezoning, you'll be accommodating a better site plan, be limiting what we can do long-term. We share a lot of the residents' concerns. We had meetings in the commission chambers to discuss traffic issues. We, from day one, didn't even bother doing a traffic study. Because when I talked to Steve Castle, who knows more about traffic than I ever will, he said, look, you can do one, but the best thing you can do is put in a turn lane for the main entrance of River Island. So we went ahead and did that because we want to do everything we can to help the traffic situation out there because it affects us long term. We are the biggest stakeholders of River Island, more so than any property owner, because we still own 500 acres of undeveloped land that if we screw up, we suffer more than anybody. So we believe that this concept is a concept that meets the needs of the neighborhood. We think it's going to be an amenity. I think a lot of people don't think of this in the right way. When I think of nice planned unit development, I think of things like Sea Pines. I think of Reynolds Plantation, both of which have apartments. Now, Hilton Head may have converted those to condos over the years because it's profitable, but in larger planned unit developments that are this size, that are done really well, there are a variety of uses to accommodate different users. Everybody can't afford $1 million house. I think and everybody doesn't want to own a house. I think you've got to change the mentality in the nation where you've got a lot more renters. This big house concept is really unique in that over about 50% of the units are going to have garages. So we'll be able to get out of your car in your garage and walk into your unit directly. That'll be less cars parked outside that are not as visually attractive. And for the most part, they're going to operate more or less like townhomes. The only reason you can call them townhomes is because there's units on top of other units. They're 2-story in scale. They're not 3-story garden apartments. They live and feel like townhomes because they're 2-story, because they have, half the units have garages. There's another elevation that I actually, one we're really keyed on. I don't know if you happen to have that one, but similar to this, the materials will match what's in River Island. Some of the units will have metal roof accents, hardy board, cedar shakes. We are not going to go back on the quality that exists in River Island. This is an asset that we intend to hold. We have sold a couple of projects over the years, and the reason we've sold the projects, and you'll probably hear about that tonight, is because you have to take every single project for what it is. We developed the Crane Creek apartment project across from Best Buy. That is one that we finished 3 years ago. It demands the highest rents in the Augusta MSA, or it did when we sold it, and I think it's still now. There's some newer ones being built. But that's why, because there were no barriers to entry for other developers to come in. You see another project that's been announced by Cabela's, and Richmond County seems to be approving apartments left and right. I don't see Columbia County. I heard staff's recommendation. They wouldn't approve apartments or townhomes in this immediate vicinity. So there's no barriers to entry. That's really good if you've got a monopoly on for rent multifamily. So that is why we intend to keep it. Ones we've sold in the past, which I think there's 3. I counted them up with my father the other day. We've sold 3 over our 30-year history. One we sold was in Aiken near South Park behind the Fresh Market. That today still has the highest rents of any apartment in Aiken. In fact, I think the chairman of the economic development lives there. So we saw one in Nashville because our partners, we sometimes partner with big REITs, and they, for various reasons, they want to sell. This one will be funded by our private placement that we together, so we'll have total control. Those other 2 projects were developed with, one was with Mary Land. Mary Land needed to sell, and we were their partner, and we agreed from day one, when they want to sell, we can sell. This is a project that we intend to own long-term. If we ever were to sell it, because somebody offered it, it would be because somebody offered us a ridiculous price, and if they were they'd have to keep the rents up to keep their investment. So I don't see the rents going down ever, given the quality that we intend to develop. And again, we have the most to lose if this is not successful and not done correctly. In order to do it correctly, I think it needs the green space that we've strived hard to implement into this.
Mr. Mills, the biggest opponent that I know of apartments in Columbia County is Clay Whittle. Have you all taken the sheriff out and gotten his opinion on this?
We actually took the sheriff to our Crane Creek project. At the time, we didn't know that there were any crime reports or any. When we got there, he told us, I've already called the sheriff, and there's not been one crime incident at your Crane Creek apartments in the 3 years. After touring it, after learning the rents there, after learning the criteria that we go through to approve tenants, includes background checks, et cetera, which we don't do for our single-family homeowners. So there's a more strenuous process you have to go in to be a renter than there is to buy a home in River Island. There's not been any issues, and I think we left that meeting with Clay, and he said I would welcome something like this of this quality in River Island. This is a little different animal. I think this one's going to be nicer.
I heard a rumor that at one of your all's developments that you were having a problem with a person that owned a dog not cleaning up after the dog, and you all actually did a DNA test to identify the dog.
You know, that would have been done by our management company. We really hire good management companies. I haven't heard that story, but it doesn't.
I heard that from
surprise me, 'cause
from a pretty reputable source.
We don't manage the departments ourselves. Because we want the flexibility to hire and fire the manager if they're not doing a good job. So we keep close tabs on them. The guy in charge of our multifamily, division, at one time managed 10,000 apartment units himself. So he knows how to keep the staff as good as it can be.
Talked to the sheriff yesterday, and he wholeheartedly after he met with you. He didn't like it until he met with you and what the product was.
Yeah, and I think that's one challenge we have is a lot of the residents have never done projects we've developed. They were not aware of this part of the zoning that was in the PUD. Sorry for that. Hopefully it's explained well, it's gonna be there now.
Gentlemen, any other questions? All right, thank you, sir. We may call you back up.
Yeah, I'm sorry I wasn't brief.
Oh, no worries. I understand that there is a group that has a presentation tonight. Yes, sir. Would you like to come forward and go ahead and give us your presentation? And I would like to tell you, if there's a slide that comes up on this that I think is not germane to the discussion here that we have any control over, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and skip through that.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you, sir.
My name's Reese Bridges, and I live at 820 Kestrel Drive. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to this commission. We've got three presenters tonight. I'll be presenting part of it. I've got Kep Davis will also present a few of the slides, and David Cabito will also present part of the presentation. We've made a presentation to the Board of Commissioners and to the Columbia County Board of Education on many of what we're going to present to you tonight, related to the apartments and the ongoing development of River Island PUD because of the continuing growth there in Blackstone Camp Road. And we have a whole group of residents, over 1,000, that really don't want apartments on Blackstone Camp Road because of the traffic, the additional development, and so forth. So we'll address that a little bit. So
But let me, before we get started, there's nothing we can do to change that.
I understand that.
Okay.
We fully understand
Yeah,
that, based on, we
there's
started
nothing-
in March to now. I know that the developer can build apartments there.
And I will
That's
tell you
clear.
also
Is it
that-
possible the developer could build 274 homes on the 500 acres that's undeveloped?
Yeah.
Is that possible, Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Would the opinion change about the traffic if it was 275 homes?
Probably renting versus homeowners.
Okay, it's fair to see where your stance is.
Yeah,
And I will tell you, this is just a recommending body, so nothing we do here tonight is binding.
Yeah.
We just take the heat. So,
Well, we've taken a lot of heat too,
Sure, I understand.
dealing with the developer on this. So I'd address the first issue is the remaining trees have little impact on the rezoning request. So if you look at, the developer says that the development plan saves trees, shown in the picture below. And this is the picture that the developer shows on the trees that are being saved on the property. But when you look at an aerial view of the property down below, you can see that the property was clear cut. You know, the majority of the trees were removed. So as far as we're concerned, it makes a little difference whether it's 274 or 305 apartments. And if you look at when the grading plan was approved, over 100 trees, mature trees, pecans, oaks, pine trees, and some over 200 years old were cut out and taken out. So I just wanted to make a statement regarding that. Next slide.
Hello, my name is Kep Davis. I'm at 1076 Peninsula Crossing. So I'm going to talk about four slides on traffic issues. And so I want to point out two major traffic issues in this area that are of a concern to the residents that live there. The first is this area around Furious Ferry Road and where Blackstone Camp Road comes into that. So it's that intersection where Blackstone Camp Road, so you'll see where we put a traffic light. There's been discussion about putting a traffic light there, and we know this is a Georgia DOT issue, but it's the increase in traffic from this development that would make this even more difficult. I have a 17-year-old son who's just starting to drive. I've told him, don't go to this intersection. You cannot turn left onto Furious Ferry. And it's not just kids, it's not just young drivers, it's adult drivers who can't do that. So the majority of folks actually do what our arrows show and drive through this neighborhood Walmart parking lot, which is not safe in itself. What we're worried about, if you show us the next slide, please.
Do you realize that by doing that, you're not creating enough traffic through there to get the documentation you need from DOT?
We understand that. We also, when you look at some of the traffic data that's available, so I can only look at the data that's available online.
Please be quiet.
And the data that's available online shows that the traffic counts aren't on that section of road between the road that goes into the parking lot and out to Furious Ferry. The count is actually back from that on Blackstone Camp Road. So the count is, on this slide, we show that I think it was in August of 2018, there were 5,000 cars a day that came down Blackstone Camp Road. Again, that was back and it was closer towards where the school is. So 5,000 cars a day.
Do we know what the certificate would have to be to get a traffic light consideration from DOT?
I think that we had this discussion in the Commissioners' Chambers. Have you made this presentation to the Georgia Georgia Department of Transportation?
I have not.
You contacted Don Grantham?
There's nothing we can do about the traffic.
Okay. But the point that we're trying to make is with this 270 apartments, which we'd estimate maybe a car and a half per apartment, right? That's close to 500 cars, making probably 3 round trips a day. I mean, that's an additional 1,500 trips a day. And then we look at, I compared that to...
That'd help you get to your light.
No, but I'll tell you what that does.
How does it not?
Well, no, it makes it worse. And
But
that's
you
our
got
concern.
The traffic to get the light.
Say again?
You got to have the traffic to get the light.
That's right.
To meet the standard.
So what we're...
Don't have the traffic now to get it, do you?
So what we're hoping is
Huh?
that...
Or no?
Say again, sir?
Yes or no? You nodded, but that's a yes or no question. Do you have the volume of traffic you need to get the certificate of need?
That's a question. I'm not sure what the volume is. But what we're hoping is that potentially the developer could assist in that, obtaining that light, working with us to do a traffic study to get that light in that area. That's number one. That's one concern.
I know that would probably be a discussion they would have, because I know that Mr. Mills has talked about working with DOT to get lights before, particularly on Hardy McManus Road. I believe you volunteered to help. And I'm not committing this to you now, but you've participated in that. Sure, understood. So that's the person you need to have the conversation with.
And I would say this, that Don, I mean, we mentioned the name, Don Grantham. I mean, you couldn't have a bigger champion for the region, the CSRA, and he's done, I think he's been instrumental in getting some areas or some intersections.
And I'll be glad to give you
upgraded.
his contact information
Absolutely.
after the meeting.
Okay.
But, and not trying to be short with you, but we're preaching to the choir here.
Right.
Because everybody knows the circumstances, everybody knows the apartments are coming, and everybody knows we can't do anything about traffic. And I'm not trying to be short with you, but we need to get you in touch with the proper people, because we're not it.
But I appreciate that. So the second thing, though, if we could go to the next slide, though, is the area around the school area, the Stallings Island Middle
And
School.
that's a Board of Education problem.
Right, but the question is, can we add a condition to this approval that would request the developer to help with, there already is one condition there to add a sidewalk. Apparently, that's already on the approval. Can we add please go to the next slide. So that would be a sidewalk on, I guess, the lower part. As we look at this picture on the far right side, that's the sidewalk they're talking about right there. But can we add a condition to add that sidewalk on the other side of the road? Add the crosswalk, potentially add a driveway into the school to help with traffic flow. As there's backed up traffic already,
Does the county own that property across the street? Isn't that the inert landfill directly across from?
I think that's River Island, actually.
That's for around.
Is it River Island?
That's right, sir.
Matt, is that your all's property there? Okay.
So we already have kids that walk along that area. Not many, because parents don't allow them because there's no sidewalks there right now. But that's what we're requesting. Can we add that condition to this approval? I mean, look, we're hopeful that as a community, we could come together to add these conditions to this development decision to help improve safety for the drivers, for the students, the pedestrians, and really just increase the quality of life despite this increase in traffic that's going on.
So, Mr. Davis, I personally went down with one of our commissioners and another planning commissioner who's not here tonight. We watched the traffic at that school, and we agree 100% with what you're telling us right here. We just
Right.
have zero control over it. It is all that, those arrows make 100% sense to me, even though what I witnessed was probably the most efficient school traffic I've seen in a long time under its current condition. This makes so much more sense, but you gotta have this presentation to the school board. And Mr. Deacle was in that meeting, by the way, and he's aware of the neighborhood concern. And I'm sure that, once again, kind of referring you to somebody that can help you better than we can in this situation, David Deacle is chair of the school board.
And David Deacle was the person that I invited to meet with Steve Castle at that particular time, because I know that the school board does not have a traffic engineer.
Sure.
Because I asked if their traffic engineer could meet with ours, and he said, well, we don't have one. I said, interestingly enough, the county does. Will you use him to help plan? And from what I understand, the engineer or the architect that decides a school fancies himself as a traffic engineer and doesn't want our input. So please put some heat on him.
No, this makes perfect sense.
And I mean, I guess what you're specifically talking about, that additional driveway we pointed out there.
Either way, I mean, in my opinion, the just coming from the existing situation and doing what you're saying, but yeah, the additional driveway makes sense too. All I'm saying is you have valid points in relation to the traffic. We just have zero control over what you're asking.
There's just one final question. So I've already seen there's one condition for the sidewalk on that one side of the road. Is it possible to add an additional condition to add the additional sidewalks on the other side to alleviate the risk for students walking out of River Island?
I believe in the meeting that I sat in that both of the Mills, Matt and Mr. Vic Mills, made a statement that they would be very accommodating and try to work with the neighborhood to do something that helps as it relates to walking trail or walking paths. I don't want to say trails because that gives it, but doing something that helps with walking traffic. And I think that's something that they're willing to sit down with homeowners to do that.
It's not possible to add it as a requirement. I mean, it appears there already is a condition for one side.
I don't.
The other
I think
side?
that would be.
I don't know that we can condition a separate
be more
parcel.
appropriate, I believe, for the commissioners to add that condition as opposed to us. Would that
Before
be?
you attempt
a
to
separate
push that, I
parcel,
would
too.
talk to Mr. Mills and see if they
Sure.
would discuss it.
Sure. Despite the condition that's already there right now for one side of the sidewalk.
I know that was
I
agreeable.
believe it relates to two different parcels, is that right?
Mr. Sterling?
Well, Mr. Chairman, let me clarify. The sidewalk that's referred to on the side of Blackstone Camp Road as proposed to connect to the school would be all the way up to the River Island Parkway intersection crosswalk at that point. So the connectivity from that portion of River Island development would be available, and then would be safely on the one side. They would only cross at that one place. The meeting you referred to in the council chambers a couple months ago, staff did actually encourage the possible connection somewhere in this area as an option, and that wasn't met with much interest at the time. Now, that can be revisited, of course, but that is something that we did in fact propose at that meeting as an option as well. So I don't think there's a one-fits-all solution here. I think we're open to working with the developers, the residents of the community, to figure out what is the best possible solution. But we have offered one, and that is the easement that will connect between the proposed apartment development and the school, and getting it from the end of that project to the school so that we can have that connectivity now or sooner rather than much later.
Crosswalk would be there, so we'd have one crosswalk instead of two.
Correct. But that doesn't mean that that's the only solution that's out there and available.
Well, I appreciate listening to
Okay.
my request.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you.
Person calling me.
Okay?
There's been a lot of discussion about management growth plan, for Columbia County, the Vision 2035, and building apartments and activity centers. And as you well know, this PUD has apartment plat, here, not in an activity center as shown in the Columbia County GMP. In addition to the PUD, there's another plat or parcel that is also a zone for apartments in the PUD. That's for 236 apartments on parcel 10 that's shown here. And what we'd like to request, we know that the county can't do anything, that they'll have to go ahead and approve the apartments, 274 or 305 or whichever. But we would like to limit the number of apartments that end up on Blackstone Camp Road that really do not fit with the management growth plan in Columbia County. So we'd like to make a request to have, since the PUD has been opened up for rezoning, to have this parcel 10 rezoned for single family or patio homes apart in the PUD.
I think that's a discussion you're going to have with the developer, because we can't just arbitrarily rezone something.
Yes,
We
I know,
can't.
I understand that.
Again, it's the same situation. We're gonna get sued, and we're gonna lose because we've basically taken a use away from somebody. I would suggest that you talk to Mr. Mills and his dad to find out, if you can come up with some alternative plans there. I would also tell you that it's taken from 2002 to basically 2020 to do these apartments, and I would almost bet that it'll be another 20 to 25 to 30 years before these are developed.
So you don't think there's any way you can make this
No,
a condition
sir.
of approving the zoning
There's
for
no way
the
that condition
74?
would hold up in a court of law.
Okay.
And that's part of our job, is to make sure we don't get the county in a position to where having to defend undefendable positions.
Good. So we thought we should present this.
Yes, sir, and I appreciate you doing that. That's a
Thank
good
you.
thought.
Next.
Evening, I'm Dave Capito. I live at 522 Tompkins Lane, River Island. And I'm here to address some statements in the zoning documentation that may need to be clarified or deleted. These do pertain to the apartments too. Before I get to those statements, I'd like just to talk about the amenities in River Island. River Island is the community on the left-hand side of Blackstone Camp Road as you drive down from Stallings Middle School. These amenities, the amenities include walking trails through the woods along the river, pool house, clubhouse, playgrounds, large fields. These amenities are owned and maintained by the property owners of River Island. And only the property owners have a legal right to grant access to non-property owners.
And sir, that's an amenity, then we have absolutely nothing to do with amenities here. We cannot control anything that are in covenants, amenities. The only thing we can do is if an amenity is part of an approval, is to make sure that amenity is delivered. We can't control how it's used. That's not under any power we
It's the
have.
property of the home of the
That's fine, but
property owners.
we have nothing to do with property owner associations. That's something that you'll have to deal with the developer and whatever association he has. So, but that has nothing to do with
Okay,
zoning.
then we need to revise zoning documentation. Clarify that. Let's go to the zoning documentation. Okay.
First, Mr. Mills, may I ask you a question? How much did you all deliver in the amenities that was not specified? Were the walking trails and riverfront walking areas and that kind of thing specified? Or have you all gone over and above on some of those amenities? Thank you, sir.
There's a document in the zoning documentation titled River Island Waterfront Settlement. It's multi-paged.
From 2002?
That's correct.
Okay.
Page 10, paragraph 4, 4.e, addresses the multifamily apartments. In the highlighted area, it states residents in multifamily residential areas will be allowed to use the waterfront amenities within the PUD, including all water features, bicycle trails, walking trails, and nature trails. This sort of implies that the county is authorizing the use of River Island
No,
amenities.
This is just a description. This is narrative in the presentation that this is not a condition. This is just the narrative that they give us to consider.
Correct, and the narrative is actually prepared by the developer or by the applicant, so that is their intent for how they're gonna develop the property.
Yeah, so this is not a condition.
But this is, it talks about the multifamily use of these amenities. These amenities are part of the River Island, which is a separate.
But again, this is just narrative. This is what they present when they're trying to sell the concept.
Okay, so this is
whoever
not,
was
this is
there.
not binding.
No, sir, this is not binding at all. The only thing that would be binding would be the approval, the denial, or the tabling, and the conditions that are in that part of the motion. All this is narrative, and it's a descriptor.
I just want to request that the record state that the River Island property owners own these amenities.
And again, that has nothing to do with what we're considering tonight with zoning. That's an issue that you're going to have to take up with the developer and with the homeowners association for the apartments when one is established.
So the county will not enforce.
We can't do anything with that because it's not binding. Would that be accurate?
It's not for us to enforce. We don't have the legal right.
Okay, so the record will show that these statements are not binding.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
What is it, Scott?
Let me, I guess, attempt to clarify that statement. They are binding in that these are expectations of what will be a part of the overall plan, and then the individual site plans, preliminary plats, et cetera, moving forward. I think the concern or the question is related to, are these part of the covenants tied to this development? Whether there are individual sections and individual covenants within those particular sections, and how that relates to the overall development of River Island, which includes the multifamily that's before you tonight. So, I don't want the Planning Commission to be confused by the idea that there is River Island development and then this apartment complex. This is part of the River Island development plan overall.
I think that's what the gentleman was trying to propose, is that
They separate them out.
they're not good enough to use their amenities. Is that what he was saying?
I don't think.
But let me ask you,
So I'm just trying to state what I heard. You didn't get to finish and you sat down. And so you never finished your thought. So I welcome you to come back up and finish your thought, sir. Although I have you on a clock.
Developer turned over these amenities to the homeowners, to the resident, the
What's
property
the
owners.
purpose of you pointing this out?
Well,
Sir.
if, I would like these statements to reflect.
The purpose of you highlighting a section that says multifamily residential people will be allowed to use these in River Island What is the purpose of you pointing that out and highlighting it? Sir?
I think that the property owners have that right to authorize that, not the county or the developer.
So what you're saying is if a member of the rental, of the apartment complex walks on a trail, you would consider that trespassing?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think, well, I'm not gonna say what I'm
Mr.
thinking.
Mills,
Thank you, sir.
is there going to be a separate homeowners association for the apartment complex, or is it gonna be wound up in River Island? I think that's the question. Are they gonna be separate entities with their own amenities there? On.
It says,
Hang on, let him finish, please. Okay, so, wait, whoa, everybody calm down, please. I'm not gonna let conversation just come from the crowd. That understood? Mr. Mills, what I would encourage you to do is to meet with these folks and establish exactly what the parameters are gonna be, or if this is it. Because again, this is not the place for this discussion, on any kind of a difference in opinion on homeowners' rights and HOA rights. It honestly is not. So with that, I'm gonna ask you to yield the mic and let whoever else is presenting come up.
Last slide, very short. This is what we've presented to the Board of Commissioners. We did have a petition, and we've got 1,050 signatures that really don't want apartments on Blackstone Camp Road. We know that apartments are coming. We'd like to improve the pedestrian and the traffic safety on Blackstone Camp Road. We'd also like to we definitely want a light at Furious Ferry and Blackstone Camp Road, and are willing to work with whoever we need to work with to help, get the support so we can do that, so we can improve traffic safety on Blackstone Camp Road. But we also want to reduce the number of apartments, and that's why I make the request about rezoning the future parcel 10 to residential.
Honestly.
It just seems to make sense.
Understood, but
The other thing is that this is not the area that we live in is a neighborhood area. It's not in an activity center. It's not centered for that kind of growth, but it was grandfathered in for 2002.
Yes, sir.
And I understand that from a legal standpoint, but we want, and these are the only two remaining undeveloped apartment sites that are not in activity centers. The one that's being approved tonight, going to be approved, and the parcel 10. That's our major concern.
Right, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that'd like to come forward and speak either for or against this particular project? Yes, sir. Please come forward and give us your name and home address.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Robert Spessert, 907 Kestrel.
Could you spell your last name, please, sir?
Certainly, like a piece of dessert, but with an SP, Sierra Papa Echo, Sierra Sierra Echo Romeo Tango. Is the county attorney here tonight?
He is not.
Okay. Therefore, what I would like to say, as a point of order, we talk about grandfathering in, and that you can't make a change. 1996, Georgia Supreme Court authorized a county changing and rezoning, they specify the test, whether it's reasonable, all right, achieve something. So you had your 2002, understand that the PUD created at that time. However, since then, you got the 2010 study and the 2015 study, and what it sounds to me is that when those documents said that the staffs and organizations will start making changes to rezone to comply, hasn't been done. Therefore, and that's many iterations of staff before. But to say that it cannot be done, I believe is an incorrect statement.
We do not have the ability to do that at this level. The
Now-
commissioners would.
That is correct, but to absolutely state that it cannot be done.
I can
and it is
state
grandfathered,
categorically,
that is an
we can't
incorrect,
do
I just want
that
a
in
point
this
of
body.
order, is that it could have been
Not
done.
at this level, it cannot be, not legally.
But, Mr.
Not
Dempsey-
legally.
No, Mr. Dempsey, the staff organizations here in the county could have, we have a vision here, we could
No, sir.
initiate changes to do that.
No, sir, you're wrong.
All right?
This is the former chairman of the county, so I think he's.
I was the chairman of the commission here for 8 years, and I assure you, you're dead wrong.
Well, it'd be interesting to find out, but.
I mean, if
but
you-
are
I mean,
it's
if
too
you're
late.
interested,
It is
file
too
suit.
late. It is too late now for this, but it is not too late to change for that other parcel. Just want you all to
That,
consider that.
again, that would be something the commissioners themselves would have to do. We can't initiate that.
There you go. All right, thank you very much.
Let's call for the motion.
And with that, I'm going to close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion on RZ 19-1203 for approval for what's in front, with conditions.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes. I just want to make a statement. For anyone that lives in that neighborhood to tell me that a person hasn't driven up with a kayak, that doesn't live in that neighborhood, put their kayak in the water and used the amenity area or walked on those trails, you're in denial. And I think it's very, I'm not sure, I don't want to use the words I have in my mind right now, but it's not very neighborly to say that people can't use your property, which is typically a walking trail. I live in Riverwood. There are apartments in Riverwood. Value of my house is going up. I have had zero crime, zero issues. And so to make that statement was out of order. It was out of line. And sir, it's all done. But you have to address it. You have to look yourself in the mirror. So that's my comment.
Any other comments? Hank? No, sir.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor? Motion to approve carries 4-0.
Not over, we got two.
That's right.
Mr. Butler, file VA 191201.
Thank you. This is a request for a variance. Our variance is, to sections 9-98 lists lot and structure requirements, and 9-147H1C, use provisions at 4102 Coleman Boulevard, currently zoned M1 light industrial.
I'm going to ask you to please keep the volume down as you're exiting.
Shows the location of the property on the south side of Coleman Boulevard. Again, most everything around it is currently zoned M1. You have across the street. This is the Mosaic Church. It was rezoned to S1. You do have some C3 in the area, but again, generally, it's primarily an industrial area. It is within the Evans Town Center overlay. Shows the existing site, and also is the side of the actual building itself. Also the plat of the property. So the reason it's before you tonight, there's an existing structure here and also here. It's about 5,300 square feet, give or take a little bit. They're proposing to put a building at the back of the property, which is approximately 2,904 square feet. This does trigger, it's more than 25% of an addition to the property, so it does trigger all nonconformities on the site. Mentioned earlier, it's an Evans Town Center overlay, which does have a 5-foot minimum setback and a 55-foot maximum setback. Again, the property, this is one of the questions that's kind of posed with the court. It was built right after Evans Town Center was adopted, the existing structure here. Not sure why it wasn't built to meet that standard. That's, nothing else was built that way on this, the street. One of the first buildings built on it, so again, it seems to be, been an issue for the entire street itself. We're having to kind of address it at this point.
It was early in the town center development process.
It was not even a year into it. So again, there's probably some questions about how to interpret that sort of thing. So we do have that issue with the setback. You also have, this is a contractor's office storage. That's how we would define it under our use provisions. It does require a 10-foot buffer, structural buffer around any kind of storage area, which would be the whole back of the property here. They already have that along these areas of the property. They have a fence here, but no actual plantings. There is a large building right up against their property, which does provide a very good buffer for the back of the property. So staff is totally fine with the request for the variance to both variances. We do have conditions for both of them. Again, the maximum front setback is removed from this property. So again, the existing building remain in place. The planning component of the structural buffer is removed from the eastern property line. Additional plans may be required for the site and will be addressed during site plan review for the proposed building, but will not be required along the eastern property line. Again, that is more to address, when they add this building onto it, they'll have to look at how much paved area they have and kind of see if they have to add any more trees. Likely not going to have to, but again, just kind of putting that out there. If they do, they will not have to put it on the eastern property line. That includes staff recommendation for the
Gentlemen, any questions of staff? Is the applicant here? Mr. Todd, please come forward, give us your name and home address.
Todd, 4102 Colburn Boulevard. I appreciate you guys' placement tonight for this agenda.
Sure you want to
item
follow that last
behind all
crowd?
that. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. We just want to expand our business a little bit. We're looking to move. Actually, I bought the building, so I didn't build the original part of it, but the front part of our building has some storage in it, and we want to move it to the back. We kind of want to finish off the entire front area, so we'll come back through the full planning department for all the necessary items, of course.
Gentlemen, any questions? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you.
Is there anyone here that'd like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning, or this particular variance, excuse me? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve with conditions, file VA 191201.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve carries 4-0. Ms. Bolte, file VA 191202.
Yes, sir. This is a request for a variance to Section 90-53, list of lot and structure requirements regarding setbacks at 4712 Woodbridge Drive. Property is located just inside the Woodbridge subdivision off Washington Road and is currently zoned R3, single-family residential. That zoning was approved back in 1973. Aerial of the site, this is our updated 2019 aerial. We'll see in a moment the earlier aerial. See, the house itself is quite close to the northwest property line. The applicants did add on to the property beginning in December 2017. They did have a permit request. They added a second garage outlined in the blue here and enclosed the porch at the rear of the house. They were very specific on their building permit that is what they were doing, adding the garage and enclosing the porch. You can see so this is the 2017 aerial. The permit application was made using this drawing with the dimensions as shown. Unfortunately, our aerials aren't always the most accurate things when it comes to measuring and property line locations. So when the structures were built, they were within the building setback. So we have a small corner of the garage and the enclosed porch that are in the setback. Those were the structures that were on the building permit. The applicants also constructed a patio with a roof cover. That was not on the building permit application, and that is much more into the setback than the two structures that were on the permit. So there's kind of two sides to this with the permitted additions. You've got a total of about 9 square feet of intrusion. It's over just a couple inches probably on the garage, a couple feet on the porch area. So it's about 6.5 feet from the property line instead of 10 feet like it would be required. It's a fairly minor intrusion, all told with the 9 square feet. It was, said it did have building permits, was approved by the county. So we are comfortable kind of reducing the side, or the rear setback to 6 feet to accommodate those two intrusions. The other side of it is the patio and the roof structure. That one actually sits, the post for that structure sits on the property line, so they would need a 0-foot setback to accommodate that structure. This was not part of their building permit request. And we can see from kind of the existing site photos, in building that, they've also done some work actually on the neighbor's property. Some of the land disturbance actually crosses the property line. This would be that post at that back corner that is sitting on the property line. So there are several kind of aspects to correcting this. What staff is recommending is that the portion of that roof structure that is in the setback be removed. And then the land disturbance be corrected. That's going to require a land disturbance permit, landscaping plan. It requires permission, a construction easement from the neighboring property owner. So there's several steps involved in getting this corrected. So staff is recommending approval with several conditions. The first, the reduction in that setback to 6 feet to accommodate the additions that were permitted, the garage addition and the enclosure of the porch. Removing of any portion of the patio roof that is within that 10-foot setback within 60 days of approval by the Board of Commissioners, and clarifying that any additional structures that are added to the property has to meet that 10-foot setback, so that 6-foot reduction would only apply to what's been built already. Regarding the land disturbance, this has been worked out with the neighboring property owner as well. They do need to stabilize that and get that in compliance. They're going to have to show us proof of the construction easement, submit for the land disturbance plan, the grading plan, as well as the landscaping plan to show how all of that is going to be corrected. And finally, to make sure that we avoid any future issues, make sure we keep that property line marked while all that work is going on so that all of that can get corrected. And that concludes the staff recommendation.
Gentlemen, any questions? Is the applicant here this evening? Yes, sir. Would you like to come forward and give us any additional information? Please give us your name and home address.
Eric Gilbert, 4712 Woodbridge Drive, Evans, Georgia. Yes, I just want to thank you guys for working with us, especially Danielle, working with my wife. She's had to fly out of town for emergency, and I did not have the opportunity to sit with them a few nights ago because I was sick, cold. So thank you guys, and we talked to our back neighbor and our property as well. We had a pretty good conversation, my wife was telling me. So thank everybody for allowing us to come here and present it.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Code enforcement, engineering services, okay with the proposed fix on this? All right. Are there?
It is our understanding, just for the record, it is our understanding that are okay with what we're.
Okay, here. Yes, ma'am. I was going to ask, is there anybody else that'd like to speak either for or against this particular variance? And this is where you would come in. If you'd come forward and give us your name and home address, please. We record these proceedings. Wait till you get up here and speak into the microphone for me. No worries.
I'm Kimmy Norman, and I'm the neighboring property owner, and we did have a good discussion, and I think we have a good plan going forward.
Awesome.
And you're okay with what?
I'm okay with the solution.
Great. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak either for or against this particular variance? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and accept a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve VA 19-12, all the conditions.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve carries 4-0. We have no legal matters. Do we have any staff or commission comments? I'd like to thank staff for helping us out with this River Island mess. You know, I understand folks are upset, but literally our hands are tied, and they're asking us to do things that are not possible, in my opinion. And I differ with the attorney or whoever he was that stood up there at the very end.
Mr. Chairman, let me make one quick comment to that. And, you know, staff is working towards a solution for the Blackstone Camp, Furries Ferry Road signalization. There's a lot of factors that go into that. So, you know, it's not a one magic silver bullet that solves that problem. And, you know, those folks have been made aware that as you eloquently put, that they're part of the problem of why it's not warranted, but there is a number of factors that go into that, and we are continuing to pursue that traffic signal any way we can, but we do have to prove warrant, and that's a big part of the problem.
Thank you, sir. What little public we have left, would you like to make any comments? If not, I'll need a motion for approval for adjournment. It's been a long day.
So moved.
I hear a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion to adjourn carries 4-0, 7:45 PM. Next meeting is December 19th, 6 PM in these chambers.
I told Danielle,
Oh,
I said, drag your feet on this one, and she started.
I know, you started talking.
Over there, Filler,